You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Goku. I see we got folks in the room already. Daily Affirmations by Pauline is here saying good evening. Kevin Carre 42 says good evening as well. NYC Beauties says greetings, family, abundance to all. And I like to hear that, man. Let's wish and work towards abundance for everyone. So yeah, as y'all know, this is the Saturday Shoot the Breeze episode. Saturday Shoot the Breeze episode. I might have a hiatus from the Shoot the Breeze starting next week. There's some obligations I have to deal with, and I might have to sacrifice Shoot the Breeze for a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks before I bring it back. But don't worry, it will come back. Titums is here saying Abibi Fahudi to everyone. So I appreciate all of you for coming through. Let me remind you guys before we begin that this show is a part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you should be checking out. For example,
this is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
yes, indeed. Make sure to check out those shows as well as the Queen's Council podcast, and keep your ears open for new shows coming down the pipe for KWAZ Radio. Make sure you like KWAZ Radio's YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe, as well as click the bell to be notified when new items occur. I see there's more people in the room. I see NYC Sports Archives is here saying hello. Black Excellence is here saying greetings to all. Appreciate all of you for being here. Let's tackle the first topic. I got a good many topics on the Discord this week, and as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this and you don't know what the Discord is, make sure to click the link that's pinned at the top of the chat or the one that's in the description and join the Discord today. On the Discord, you too can drop certain topics you'd like me to do on the Shoot the Breeze. I don't know all the answers, but between me and my esteemed listeners in the chat room, we'll get to some answers. Okay? First topic was, should pro-Black people move into video game streams to connect with the youth more? Should pro-Black people move into video game streams to connect with the youth more? And I'll add to that, do you think there's something more effective that can be done to connect with the youth more, right? Should pro-Black people move into video game streams to connect with the youth more? Revolutionary Matron is here saying greetings, fam. Pro-Black Perspective is here saying peace. Everyday NYC1 is saying I'm here for this. Thank you for being here. So that first prompt, should pro-Black people move into video game streams to connect with the youth more? my take on it is, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. If you're doing it because that's what you like to do, you like to play video games, and you figure that it's a good platform to connect with people, by all means. If you're like Boyce Watkins, who I don't know this man, but doesn't seem like an authentic video game player to me, and I could be 100% wrong. If I am, I apologize in advance. Right? But it seems like a guy like Boyce Watkins would do the video stream thing, the video game streams, just to try to exploit the situation. Right? But if that's really who you are, you're a gamer, and you think you have games that can add something, you want to stream those games, you want to use the time while you're streaming to try to kick some knowledge to the youth, by all means do that. By all means do that. I have nothing against it. In the chat room, Black Excellence says to me, we have to listen to the youths. They are the future. Kevin Carr 42 says, yes, we need to connect with the youth. It's a segue to better communication. NYC Beauty says, yes. What about the rest of you in the room? Right? That's my take on it. If it's authentic, if it's authentically you, and you're authentically going to use that moment to kick some knowledge and to positively, I guess, indoctrinate folks, why not? Right? NYC Sports Archive says we have to have fun with games you learn strategy. Right? Revolutionary Matron says, I think we can connect with the youth by having resources. Any resources will do: reading programs, apprenticeships, parks, and culture programs. Youth gravitate towards activity, towards life. I agree with that as well. Tatum says, I say yes. Tatum says yes. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, young people understand video games, so it'd be a smart move to get a pro-black message across. Right? Tatum says, and I agree with this, we need to modernize our approach. I absolutely agree with that. I think I said this on the show before. I wanted to do, I'm not a big gamer. I'm an older guy, so I'm not a gamer like that, but I did want to do something with this ancient African game Mancala, and I would have loved to be able to do that on the Discord, and have folks like us who are here today on the Discord. We could challenge each other, do tournaments, stuff like that. So again, I'm not against it. Tatum says we're doing things a bit too old school and boring for the youth. You need to grab their attention. I agree. Revolutionary Kevin Carre says Revolutionary Matron says to Revolutionary Matron, right? We must give resources. We cannot leave them hamstring. We must leave them something to compete in this world. We cannot leave them to start over. Absolutely. My Kevin Carre knows my biggest pet peeve is black folks. Traditionally, we tend to leave it up to the youth to figure it out, and as opposed to bridging those gaps, right? Sankofa Knowledge is here saying, greetings, family. You guys make sure to hit the like button for me, please. We have more viewers than likes. Let's get the likes up. The pro-black perspective says Fortnite contest. Okay, Fortnite is a hot game. Fortnite is a hot game. Now, the thing we have to discuss in this topic is how are we viewing the action, the violence? Like, how are we gonna deal with that? Is that something we're just gonna be cool with because we're pushing a message while doing it? Oh, what? The Pro Black Perspective says Call of Duty tournament is realistic too. You can analyze the messages. That's true. Again, a shoot 'em up type game that allows you to analyze what they're trying to push through. Because remember, games are propaganda too. There's a level of propaganda in games, and so you have the ability to actually talk to youth about what's going on, what's the propaganda that's being pushed here. A lot of games, a lot of Call of Duty, shoot 'em up type games are designed to make kids want to go into the military, believe it or not. A lot of that stuff is designed to make kids want to go into the military. And so, you have opportunity to discuss how effective that propaganda is in video games. The Pro Black Perspective makes the point: war is violent. War is violent. So you might as well introduce the kids to it early, because guess what? We're at war. Sankofa Nod says we need to stay in touch with the youth. We criticize them without teaching them. They are the ones that are going to take care of us when we get older. Hopefully that's true. Revolutionary Matron asks a question: did Black Sand recently come up with a comic strip app? I would play a pro black strategy game. We could do a twist on other games. I don't know if the passion and skill is available from the pro black people. See, that's how I think. What Revolutionary Matron just said right there is exactly how I think. I think that we must start thinking about creating these things ourselves and inputting the messages that we want to put in while we're at it, But until that time, we have to work with what we have. And so if you want to, again, if you're pro-black, and again, if you're bringing the message, the pro-black message through this platform, go ahead and do it. Sankofa Knowledge says, my brother, who was younger, plays Call of Duty online. He knows what's going on in the world. Interesting. Because let's face it, Sankofa Knowledge brings up a good point too. A lot of these video games, when you get into the streaming aspect of it, playing online, that's when these kids are introduced to all the racism there is out here, right? But if you could pull them into your own stream, right, you have the opportunity to push a particular message that you want to push through. But to go back to Revolutionary Matron, I don't know if Black Sand came out with a comic book strip app. I'm not sure about that. I've been waiting, because they've been talking about like a cartoon or something for a while now, and I haven't seen anything or heard anything of it. That'll be interesting to know what they're doing with that. Kevin Carre 42 says the G.I. Joe cartoons of the 80s was made to make you go to the military. Absolutely. And no one is half the battle, right? Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I believe the two kids who were shooting at the police this week said they were influenced by a video game. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's negative consequences if you don't reel it in. But if you're using it as a teaching tool, it's fine. I think I talked about this on the show before, and I know Kevin Carre knows what I'm about to say. But a couple years ago, actually maybe more like a decade ago, there was a problem some scientists were having in understanding how a protein was folded. They couldn't figure out how was this protein folded and interacting with these other subunits. And they put the task to video gamers. And video gamers was able to figure out, right, how the protein was folded and how its subunits interacted together. So there's definitely something to exploit there in that field, to get people's minds working on problems, etc. So again, I don't think it's a bad idea. But you have to corral it. Again, you could either go and solve how a protein is folded, right? Or you can go out there and do some dumb shit like busting back at cops or something like that, right? Revolutionary Matron says we have to teach the children to take care of us. There are a lot of children that came from good homes but have no alliance to their family or the community. NYC Sports Archive says the white supremacists team up on us online. We can clap back on them online. Kevin Carey 42 says we don't have to play just war games. There are so many other non-violent games online. Some young people love chess. Absolutely. Goes back to what I was saying about the Mancala. You could throw chess in there. And I particularly like Mancala because it's a sensible game. It's a traditional African game. But there are other things you can play as well. And if you guys, by the way, if you guys figure out or come across some information on how to successfully stream on, say, the Discord, or, you know, and not just stream like, you know, Call of Duty and stuff like that, but whatever, you know, strategy games or whatever, let me know how to go about doing that. And that's something I could work on, maybe bring about later in the summertime. All right. Black Excellence says chess broadens the mind. Absolutely. It's strategy, right? It's chess, not checkers. Although checkers is cool, but stress makes you think 1 or 2 steps ahead, right? Does anyone else want to say anything else about video game streaming, or how we said what needs to be said? Have we said what needs to be said, or does anyone else want to bring up something else about the topic? So, by the way, while you guys answer that, I gotta say that we got a lot of topics for tonight's Shoot the Breeze. I appreciate it. And so these topics are kind of all over the place, but hey, that's what Shooting the Breeze is about. We talk about anything, we talk about everything. We don't have a particular order to discuss it in, right? Revolutionary Matron says the kids were not black kids, and they lived, I don't care about them. Okay, I do care about the fact that every message our children have access to is anti-life. I get that. We gotta, you know, again, once we're pushing the story, once we're pushing the conversation, and once we're pushing the learning objectives during these live streams, I don't have a problem about it. Black Excellence says we are all in agreement about the video games online. So the next topic, since we're all in agreement, the next topic is an interesting question. Why do certain people want economies of currency instead of body economies? By the way, that first topic, and as well as this topic, were given by the Pro-Black Perspective this week, right? The Pro-Black Perspective with Oni Taisei. You guys make sure to check out his show. I'm sure you'll have an episode tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out the Pro-Black Perspective. Why do certain people want economies of currency instead of barter economies? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Why do folks want economies of currency instead of barter economies? For those who don't know, bartering is the oldest and simplest form of commerce. The way bartering used to work, and still work, because people still do it. People in the Caribbean and stuff still do it. The way it works, kind of straightforward. People who are participating negotiate and exchange a valuable product for another. That could be a good or service, right? It's usually between two groups, two parties, but sometimes it could be a third involved as well, right? The bartering, I remember in an economics class, we learned the term double coincidence. Bartering involves the double coincidence of needs and mutual value. So that means that if I want sugar from you and you want flour from me, it has to be the case that I need flour, right? If I'm trying to get sugar from you and you want to give me flour, if I'm trying to get sugar from you, right, and you want flour from me, well, I have to have a need for sugar in order for you to get that flour, right? I think I said that correctly, right? So that's a double coincidence of needs. The thing about the barter, though, is that the double coincidence of needs or wants, however you want to look at it, that could be a barrier, right? But there's other good things about it, like you get the immediate reciprocal exchange. It eliminates the need for money. Instead of having to go buy your sugar from a man, instead you're able to get it from someone else, and you could give them something of equal value to them, right? One of the drawbacks could be it's also limited, right? It's limited in terms of, you know, people don't always want goods of compromise, right? They also want to be able to trade with people they know. If you don't know enough people, you can't make those barter trades. The two knocks against it, and this I guess gets to the answer to the, you know, the answer of the question at hand, is that you can argue that bartering doesn't bolster economic growth when you look at, say, whole communities or countries or what have you. That's a huge one. And the other thing, and this is for the scamps out there, it eliminates the use of money. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? Right? If you have a barter economy, right, you've eliminated the need of money. Pro-Black Perspective says he never heard of the double coincidence of needs or wants. Yeah, that's an economic thing. Right? You can eliminate, what was I saying? You can eliminate money in a barter society, but the problem with that for many, for the scamps out there, is that money leads you to allows you, if you're a scamp, to consolidate power. You could hoard money. You can hoard money. And that's what we see out here in the world. We see people hoarding money so that there is a definite have and a definite have-nots, right? In the chat room, there's a couple of responses. Revolutionary Matron says portable money equals consolidated power. Absolutely. Kevin Carre 42 says you can always print currency. Barter, you get the real value, not fiat money. Revolutionary Matron agrees with Kevin Carre, saying exactly, you get to determine the value of the money and the value of my goods. Black Excellence says fiat money in United Snakes is backed by faith. If that Jim Crow Joe Biden infrastructure bill goes through, the US dollar is screwed. But on the other hand, cryptos go up in value. NYC Beauty says paper money is dead, cryptos is the future. All right. NYC Sports Archive says you are right. To NYC Beauties, crypto is the future. If you carry too much cash to go overseas, it can be confiscated. Cryptos is anonymous. Sankofa Knowledge says get rid of the fiat dollars, it's old. Everyday NYC 1 says look at Venezuela, they are going through hyper inflation. Because that's the thing about money. The scamps can hoard it. They can do all sorts of things with it to hyperinflate it. They can drop it. So I mean, there's so much things they can do with money. Whereas, listen, if I need sugar and I got excess amounts of flour for whatever reason, and you need flour, we make our exchange and we're good. You know, that's how my grandmother and them used to deal back in the day. All right. Every day NYC says something interesting too. He says another thing is germs on the paper money. The affirmation by Pauline is here. She's saying bartering evens the playing field, and the powers that be don't want that. He who has the most money has the power. And I think that comment wins that topic right there. Again, this was a topic by the Pro-Black Perspective. Maybe he might want to say something here as well. But I mean, that's the thing that's why people will prefer a money economy. You know, they could tighten their fists and squeeze you out of that money, and you know, and thus consolidate power over you. Daily Affirmations laughs at me saying scamps, but that's what it is. Black Excellence says Zimbabwe too is going through hyperinflation. Right? Anyone else want to share their thought on bartering versus you know, paper money type economies, right? But I think we hit all of it. I mean, it's a simple system to barter. There's no real concentration of power. There's no exploitation of natural resources. So, you know, you ain't got to hold yourself out for some sugar, right? But if you're not careful out here, you got to hold yourself out for some money though, right? You know, and the only real disadvantage is that the wants and needs have to coincide somewhat. You know, some people will say there's a lack of value, but the value will be on what you put on it, right? The value will be what you would put on it. Another thing I saw someone say before about the barter system, which is an interesting thought, and I would like to get you guys' take on it. In the bartering system, the claim is that you can't defer payments. Whereas in a money system, you could defer payments, right? But you can't defer payments in a barter system. Do you guys feel that that's an issue? Right? Or at least there's difficulty. Maybe not you can't, but there's difficulty. Right? So you guys let me know that. One last question to this topic. Do you think that's a problem? The Pro-Black Perspective says, yeah, bartering sounds more peaceful, and it was, and it is. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, my Venezuelan Haitian neighbor barters with all of our neighbors. Bartering brings closeness in communities. That's a excellent point. And I see why the Pro-Black Perspective says, yeah, bartering sounds more peaceful. That is a good point. Right? Does anyone here have an objection to bartering? Because it's one thing to talk about all the niceties of bartering. Does anyone have an objection to bartering? So the Pro-Black Perspective asks, can you even have labor? Can you have labor in a bartering system? Yeah, because it's goods and services, right? So it might just be, it might just be that, and in fact, what was I reading about in Africa? That's kind of what it was. Like, you know, I can do work for you, and in turn, I could get the groceries or whatever that feeds my family, right? Pro-Black Perspective says, like, how you get people to work in the mines bartering. So that's a good question. And I kind of see where you're coming from. I think I've discussed something like this in the past. This is why, and I think it was the Pro-Black Perspective and I who said it, this is why I always say that when the word capitalism comes up, and a pro-black perspective said this before, we gotta kind of find a different word for it. Bartering is cool, I have no problem with it, but at the same time, and I think this is what the objection the pro-black perspective is making now, maybe you can't have developed industry in bartering. The thing that we don't want to lose, the thing that we don't want to lose sight of is that if you want to push a nation forward, right, you have to reward its thinkers, right? And I don't know if bartering is sufficient enough when it comes to the thinkers who are pushing the nation forward. And I think in that sense, I think when that occurs, you need to have a compensation system for those folks. Do you guys follow me? Now, I don't know if it has to be money or whatever, but there's something different has to happen for the people who are pushing your society forward, for sure. Who are definitely putting in the thought work, the labor, to make things advance, right? Daily Affirmation says something, and she says, I don't think bartering will work on a world economic level. And I agree with that, right? KW Don 7 is here saying modern day capitalism is feudalism. Absolutely. Imperialist feudalism, right? The pro-black perspective says that's probably deferred payment if you're working for groceries. Right, that's you working and your payment comes after you finish your job, right? So that's why I say, like, you can have deferred payments in a barter system, but does it work well? You know what I mean? That's one of the questions people would ask. Like, and so a lot of people will say there's a difficulty in deferring payments. Does that work well? Because after I work my ass off in the mines, are you going to give me enough groceries really for the work that I did before? And so this is what people have the issues with the barter system. Are you getting equal value, etc., etc.? But that one thing that only time I say the pro-black perspective said the objection, maybe you can't have developed industry in bartering. That's something to definitely think about. Right? That's something to think about. If I'm here figuring out clean energy, right? Is the barter system gonna compensate me enough for that? Right? I grew up back home. I grew up around church, right? And in the church system that I grew up in, the priests would get a car for free. They would get a house to live in, right? But they still had to get money, right? So there's a couple things to think about here. There's the issue of, can the barter system really give enough value? It works on smaller things and small communities between a few people, but can it really cover the people who are really moving the society forward? That's something we'll have to discuss and think about. Revolutionary Matron said, I think the collection of interest in bartering systems makes them undesirable for those that would like to have power. Boy, that's a heavy one. That's a heavy one. NYC Beauty says, in barter, it's goods up front. I'm not going to give you something of value and not get something for it up front. Well, like Only Time Say pointed out, the deferred payment in bartering would be if you do work for grocery, right? I mean, that's also a feasible exchange in a barter system, right? But I get what you're saying, and because of that, I think that's why bartering is a problem, right? So like the pro-black perspective said, you writing clean energy textbooks and getting a biscuit. See, that's where. So just to recap, because we're getting some interesting responses to this idea. Bartering is cool between you and your neighbor, you and your neighbors, plural at times, right? But if you're talking about a society and you're talking about being able to move that society forward, you're gonna have to think of something slightly different. You're gonna have to think of something more. That's the problem with the word capitalism. It's been a word that's thrown to swines, right? The pro-black perspective says, who only want to work for groceries, and how many groceries do employees have? Revolutionary Matron says, all Rome brought to the people was war and roads. Going back up, Revolutionary Matron said people still need basic services like housing, electricity, internet, sanitation. We need to figure out outside trade, reward for innovation. That's what I'm talking about. I like how you put it, the reward for innovation and allocation of resources to all members of the society. So, bartering is cool. Bartering is cool, but can you have a flourishing society on that? No. Can you have an Arawak village? Sure. All right. You could have an Arawak village, right? I'll give you a couple of tomatoes. When you go fishing, you bring me back a big fish. You could have that kind of thing going on, and that can be peaceful, as folks said earlier. That can be peaceful. But it's a good point that you gotta reward innovation and the innovators in society, and I don't think bartering quite covers that. Tatum says we need equitable infrastructure. Marcus McGee says, and piece of Marcus McGee too, says, do you think true world history will ever be told? All right, Marcus, I'll come back to that. Right now we're talking about bartering versus currency economies. Right? Tatum's follow-ups and says, how do you fund it without money? Yeah, the thing that especially African folks are going to have to wrestle with is, how do you have an economy that does the things that we're talking about, that where everyone's basic needs are covered, right? Because in the old bartering, let's say old Africans, let's say old Arawaks or whatever, it seems that they had their basic needs covered. It seems that everyone had their basic needs covered. The problem is, though, when it comes to those who are the innovators, like the pro-black perspective says earlier, am I really gonna just get a biscuit? I'm out here capturing energy from the sun and illuminating your houses and running your machines and all this old shit, and I'm gonna get a biscuit for it? That's an issue, right? Kevin Carre 42 said, let's get these likes up. That's absolutely correct. Let's get the likes up to match the number of people up in here, right? We got some people going back and forth. I see the numbers of viewers go up and come back down, but that's fine. Black excellence brings up envy. Let's talk about that. Black excellence, what do you mean by envy? What comes to mind with envy? The pro-black perspective says, while video gaming, you can play the Bitter Medicine podcast instead of music. Well, I won't turn that down. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But it's true though. And I'll return the favor, and I mean this sincerely. While you're preparing on your Sundays or whatever for your work week or whatever it is you do, you can have the pro-black perspective on as well. You could be listening to what he's bringing, right? Marcus McGee, I don't want to forget your question, but we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, all right? And we never touched on it, but the pro-black perspective is right. Who only want to work for groceries, right? I mean, everyone, the way I envision a society is everyone should have their basic needs met, right? But for that to happen, you have to have innovators, you have to have leaders, and the innovators have to be compensated. And we got to figure out a system to compensate, like a few people said, Revolutionary Matron said, Tatum's and the like. We gotta find a way to have a society where the innovators get rewarded for innovating. They don't just get a biscuit, but everyone else can have their needs met. Black Excellence answers the question, says, let's say someone in the same profession gets a bigger reward than you. Human nature of envy kicks in. You know, when it comes to the issues of being human, we can't really do much with that, to be honest. What I mean is, in the scenario that you painted, I get it, but it is what it is. If anything, you know, my thing is work harder. All right? Work harder and get the bigger reward next time. You know? So there will be competition. Right? But work, you know, you just got to work harder. I mean, there's no perfect fix. I'm going to be honest with you. Right? There's no perfect fix. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that you can take. You take the best of the things that are out there and you make it cohesive. Right? So like I said, bartering in small town and small times is fine, but it won't necessarily push the people forward in that society. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add to that? While I look up the next topic, by the way, thanks to Onita Say from the Pro-Black Perspective for that. The Pro-Black Perspective, when he posted this, he had a reference, and the reference was the importance of money for our law. What does that say? It's kind of blocked. Also great, the Shazan-ish suggests that perhaps we are in a culture where money is not used. We are obligated to introduce it. That's an interesting reference. I should have mentioned that reference earlier, but that's an interesting thought. If you live in a society where there's no money, you might be obligated, for the reasons that we've all kind of fleshed out here, Tatum's and Revolutionary Matron, the Pro-Black Perspective, Kevin Carre, etc. There might be a need to introduce it. My question is, and here's the last question I'll ask you guys based on this prompt: how do you stop folks from consolidating power around money? How do you stop folks from consolidating power around money? How do you stop folks from hoarding money? Right? That's a question. Let me do a quick station ID while you guys answer that question. I'll be back on the other side to read your comments.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Check out those shows on KWAZ Radio as well. The question is, how do you stop people from consolidating power? Right? In the chat room, the Pro-Black Perspective says those are the exploiters. saying they will introduce culture, sound like for power. Marcus McGee says our people had the most precious wealth, which is land and resources, and they just take it now. Black Excellence says to me, that's a tricky question. The moment you do that, it becomes a dictatorship. It only gets slippery from there. Yeah, that's the... And by the way, the pro-black perspective was referring to the reference that he also posted when he posted that prompt, right? The exploiters will say that you have to introduce money. But my thing is that if you want to compensate the innovators, right? If you want to compensate the innovators, what do? Revolutionary Matron says, build community and consolidate power around people. You have to stop believing that you will ever earn enough to be in their castle. There are people that have had the same land for 700 years, right? Kevin Carre says, remember the cream rises to the top. All right. Yeah, introduce currency. Yeah, the folks who want to introduce currency definitely want to do it for the reason of power. But again, we have the conundrum, as we've discussed here. What is it? What do you do with the folks who are not just doing everyday, ordinary stuff, but who are actually propelling the people forward? You know, and that, you know, maybe I might do an episode later on about that. What do you do with those people who are pushing things forward? Kevin Carre makes a great point. We cannot have one person dictating laws, which I think builds on what Revolutionary Matron said, right? You got to put the power in the hands of the people. But power in the hands of the people doesn't always work too, you know? Imagine putting hands in the power of the listeners of Tariq Nasheed. You know, what's going to happen if you do that, right? Kevin Carre says we must have equality, power corrupts. I agree. I'm going to go find the next prompt that comes from Revolutionary Matron. Revolutionary Matron posted a great prompt. I'm going to probably lean on Revolutionary Matron a little bit more to respond to this, right? I see we have someone here named Bryant Jackson. Bryant Jackson says, we mastered all of these issues at one time. Sadly, with the poisonous parasitic paradigm we all grow up in, we seem to be struggling to conceptualize a fair socio-economic system. Bryant, I think I may have seen you here before. Thanks for being here tonight. Make sure you hit the like button, those of you who haven't already. Brian, when did we master this in particular? When did we master this in particular? Like give us a reference point, right? But again, I appreciate that, and I would like to see what reference we have of when we mastered all these issues at one time. And by we, who are we? Is we Africans or is we everybody? You know, just generally people. Marcus McGee said something earlier I want to double back to. He said our people had the most precious wealth, which is land and resources, and they just take it now. And that is a failing of our people, to be clear. We're not organizing around the issue of preserving our lands, and so we're losing it, right? We're losing it. Brian Jackson said we as Africans. So we as Africans had fixed this issue before. we as Africans had fixed this issue before? If you could just drop a reference for that, I'd like to check that out. I know there was a time where we did, you know, bartering and subsistence farming and whatnot. But there also was a time, and it goes back a long time ago, where we had cowrie shells as currency, right? So I'm just trying to figure out what happened, what changed, right? Tatum's asked a question, what's a 501 organization? Revolutionary Matron comes back and says, that is actually a 501c 8 organization, benefit corporations like fraternal orders and worker cooperatives. We think of 501c's as charities. They are not charities. Brian Jackson says, although Gaddafi was an Arab, he leveraged a good model that African people used. Okay. Brian Jackson, we'll come back to that in a second. Revolutionary Matron had this prompt that honestly I didn't have much knowledge about, but the 501c number 8 is a benefits consideration for fraternal organizations. Fraternal organizations have been exempt from federal income tax since the enactment of the Revenue Act of 1913. Though the general exemption requirements have remained unchanged, over time additional guidance has established how to evaluate Section 501c number 8, fraternal organizations benefits, right? So this is one of those things like the lodge system. With a lodge system, once it could show that its members benefit from the system, that it provides payments for life, sick, accident, or what have you, they could get exemptions for it. Revolutionary Matron, what's your experience with the 501c number 8 benefit? And do you think it's something we can use in Black society in terms of organizing? Is that something? Is that what you're kind of thinking about this? Brian Jackson, still referring to the previous prompt, says, what has changed was the colonial insertion between us and our vital needs. Power is the ability to influence others. Power is wielded over us because others seize land and the means of production. But the thing about that explanation is that we did some of that stuff before our colonizers came around us. In fact, our colonizers exploited some of that about us. And that's how you have certain things going on in African history, right? Brian says the means of production is the foundation for all economies and currencies. Okay. Let's go back though to the current discussion. Revolutionary Matron said the C8 benefit corporations like fraternal orders and worker cooperatives, right? We think of 501c's as charities. They are not. But so the question is, how can we use a 501c8 to our benefit, right? How is it that we can use this to our benefit? Right? I don't know much about it to answer the question, but if you know more about it, do you think it's beneficial to establish a 501 organization? And I guess the idea is to allow minimal investment from all members to benefit all members. So, I mean, a SUSU, an ASU, or a SUSU, however you want to call it, I mean, that could be looked at as a 501c8, right? Brian Jackson says a philanthropreneur model can be useful. A 501c3 in conjunction with LLCs can help us. Look at the Jewish community and their usage of nonprofits to uplift themselves. Okay, so now I'm going to learn from you guys. Brian, let's break that down a little further then. How do these Jewish folks, how do they use these 501cs and whatnot in conjunction with LLCs, as you said, to uplift themselves? I'm just curious. Put me on to what's going on out there. Because if it makes sense, I will make sense of it as well. I will utilize it. Revolutionary Matrix says, I think that we can use 501cs to organize ourselves and consolidate our economics. We can buy things together and use them to benefit the members. So this sounds like this sounds like those cooperatives that folks used to talk about a lot. Like, instead of me buying, it's summertime now in New York. Instead of me buying an air conditioner for myself and paying, let's say I'm buying a $300 AC, if I know that folks in the community also needs ACs, why not we buy in bulk and end up spending, $150 or something per air conditioner? It sounds like something along those lines. So the thinking is, let me put two thoughts together. The thinking is, you create the 501c, you organize within this structure. This way, instead of folks paying full hard-earned money for items that they want, instead we buy it as collectives, buy it in bulk, so to speak, under this 501c, right? And this way we benefit the community, because again, you're not spending as much as perhaps you would have had you done it by yourself. Marcus McGee has another good question, but let's finish this topic and I'll get to those questions as well. Right? You know what? While I'm waiting for folks to respond to what I just asked, I'll say to Marcus McGee is, I don't know for sure that African Americans are finding, right, like through with definitive evidence, right, that they are Native American. I think a lot of African Americans are playing off the idea that they're Native Americans, and and a lot more of them are taking on that thought process. But I don't know that African Americans are doing, let's say, a DNA or ancestry test and finding out, hey, I'm Navajo or some shit. I don't know if that's the case. The reality of it is, a lot of black folks, not just African Americans, but they seem to be a big group. A lot of black folks want to be anything but African. They want to be anything but African. And so a lot of folks will glom onto, whatever they can to not be African. All right. Revolutionary Matrix says, yes, we will be able to benefit all members with little investment. There are long-term investment requirements. We can establish guilds that teach a skill and then give member discounts on the services. So the question I have for that then is this. Do we have examples of black folks successfully doing this and not being hemmed up on some tax evasion type stuff? Do we have that? Do we have that example out there? I know that my man Brian Jackson earlier said that the Uish community is doing this. Do we have examples of this? Because, you know, if we have positive examples of this working, then absolutely we need to employ it, right? Marcus McGee says, I asked because in 1993, Donald Trump said the only Indians he knew looked like Michael Jackson and not the ones running the casinos, LOL. Well, that's true. There was a period where white folks themselves were claiming to be Indian. And they were buying themselves into the title of Indian. And there was a term for it too. They were buying themselves into the title of Indian. And they were then basically usurping whatever benefits the country claimed to put forward for the Native Americans. These white folks were taking that money. There's also the fact that there are Indians who came across the Bering Straits who were more so like Mongolian or what have you. And then there were black folks in America. I'm not saying that they were a huge group in America and all that, but there were black folks here who passed through. You know, there were darker skinned Indians who were here, but they're not genetically related to us. The darker skinned Indians are not genetically related to us. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says to Marcus McGee, I heard the same. When African Americans find out they have Native American DNA, they need to be included in the tribe's wealth distribution. Well, that's true. If you do find out that you're a part of an admixture between Native Americans and blacks, by the way, Native Americans fought to keep slaves, by the way. And I don't hear none of y'all out here who claim an Indian talking about it. Native Americans fought to keep your black asses as slaves, by the way. Just to be clear. But Trump is correct in that, you know, when he goes to the casinos, he sees a bunch of white folks. Right? And by the way, which Michael? Oh, he said Michael Jordan. Okay, I thought he said Michael Jackson. I was going to ask, which Michael Jackson was he referring to? Jackson 5 Mike? Oh, Man in the Mirror Mike. That's two different mics. If you're talking Michael Jackson, but you said Michael Jordan. Okay. Revolutionary Matron says fraternities, sororities, interest-based clubs come together to benefit society. Black people are looking for a quick dollar. We don't do this in the black community because we don't trust each other. So Revolutionary Matron, let's do this. On the Discord, let's have a full-blown conversation about this. Let's bring documents and whatnot, and let's talk about it. All right. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, I never heard that they fought to keep African American slaves. Absolutely they did. Look it up. Absolutely they did. They had slaves and they fought to keep the shit too. Right? Dorico Cooper Photography is here saying peace, family. Peace to Dorico Cooper Photography. Good to see you come through today. Right? If you're black and you find out you have some admixture in your lineage between black folk and an Indian, which did happen sometimes, you should absolutely be included in whatever benefits they get. Right? But the reality of it is, those Native American groups, I forget how many families or tribes there were in America, they've expelled black folks from those tribes. I want y'all to look that up. They've expelled black folks from those tribes, making damn sure you don't get those benefits. So they're just as bad as the European as far as I'm concerned. Oh, man. Wait a minute. That's horrible news, Dorico Cooper Photography. Wow, that is horrible news. I'm sorry to hear that. I knew about your great aunt's passing. I knew you told me you weren't here in the previous weeks to take on, to take in the show because your great aunt had passed. But that news right there, I mean, just blows me away. Hey guys, if you are religious, if you are whatever you are, let's lift up Dorico Cooper Photography, man. He just said his dad died today. Oh man, in a car accident on the way to his great aunt's funeral. Damn. Y'all lift the brother up for real though. Lift him up for real. I mean, that's tough news to hear. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. Man, I almost want to end the show there because that's heavy. Brian Jackson says one reference, the American Jewish Philanthropic Complex, a multi-billion-dollar institution by Leela Corwin Berman. I'm going to look that up, Brian Jackson. Kevin Carey 42 says, to Dorico, my condolences. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says to Dorico, my deepest sympathy. So much for you to bear. Marcus McGee says prayers. That's tough. That's tough. That's tough. Revolutionary Matron says prayers as well. That's real tough to hear. The Pro-Black Perspective sends his condolences as well. That's horrible. My condolences. Yeah, that's real tough to hear. Damn. Marcus McGee says, to me, it seems like history isn't being told correctly to keep us confused. So, Marcus, I'm going to touch on your question earlier that I said I'll talk about later. Yeah, history, when you're dealing in war, expect there to be deceit. And the biggest deceit is to withhold a person's history, right? If a person has, let's say a person has amnesia all of a sudden, the thing, you can do that person anything because they don't remember who they were, what they were, etc. You could take the biggest fighter, and if he or she has amnesia, you can reduce them to a shell of themselves. And that's the thing about history. So will history ever be really taught? History will be really taught when we teach our own history. And furthermore, we as a people need to seek out history. Kevin Carey says history is told by the victors. That is largely true. But we got folks out here, truth tellers, who tell the truth in history. We got people doing the work too. Like I recently was talking about the Clyde Winters book. That's our history in there. The problem is, there's an old saying about black folks that you could hide shit from them in a book. Right? You can hide shit about black folks in a book. We gotta start seeking out history. You got like the Pro-Black Perspective, who has the Book of Power, who has the Pro-Black Compendium. There's history in those books in terms of the knowledge that our elders have put out there, quotations and speeches and whatnot. That's history. We gotta go seek this stuff out too. We too like the simple, easy stuff. And in fact, I mentioned Tariq Nasheed earlier. One of the reasons why the Hidden Colors series took off is because he had rappers in the documentary. Look that up if you think I'm lying. He'll tell you it himself. To get people to really mess with the documentary, he had to go and get some rappers. I think Nas was in the first one. I think KRS-One was in the... He had to go and get... I think Ice-T was in the first one. He had to go and get rappers to be in it. That's a problem. If that's what gets us to go check out a documentary, which is really a Google, which was really Google research, right? But you throw in a couple entertainers, there's a problem. There's a problem, right? Life with Nelly also send her condolences to Dorico. Kevin Carre says, look up the cartoon Samurai Jack, the episode called The Woolies. Okay, you guys can do that. Marcus McGee says, yes, and that is what took me a long time to understand. We are in a war, and I didn't even realize it. You see that comment that Marcus McGee put right there? That is the state of black society. And kudos to you for realizing it now. Black society does not realize it's in a war. It's in a war. As G.I. Joe used to say, I think Kevin Carre brought up G.I. Joe earlier, knowing is half the battle. You got to start to know some shit. Knowing all of Cardi B's catalog, that ain't helping nothing. Knowing a Lil Wayne verse ain't helping nothing. Right? You gotta go out there and get your information. Kevin Carre says here, in NYC, the two main museums, the Metropolitan Museum of Art and its sister, the Brooklyn Museum, has so much of our stolen history. I mean, I was gonna say that earlier too. Go to any museum. Go to any museum and look at the artifacts that they have from the continent, which they won't even return. Right? We got to start seeking out the history. We got to start understanding ourselves. And again, this is what Shooting the Breeze is about. This is what Shooting the Breeze is. The Shooting the Breeze is not about me talking about what I know. Shooting the Breeze is about what we know. And really challenging ourselves to furthering our understanding. This is why I like to have guys like Kevin Carre around and the pro-black perspective, and ladies like Revolutionary Matron and Daily Affirmations by Pauline. You're going to get different perspectives, right? There's some things I'm not going to know about, like a 5018, like a 501c8 or whatever it is. You know, I don't know, but that's something interesting, right? Speaking of Revolutionary Matron, she says, my parents lied to me about the war, either out of shame, ignorance, or hope. I would bet you it's hope. I would bet you it's a little bit of all those things. But I really believe black folks cannot believe themselves that these are the folks who are our enemy, who are at war with us. I think black folks just can't comprehend that there's people like that out there, that there's a whole group of people on the bullshit. You know, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about this phenomenon, which I've now forgotten the name for it. There's a phenomenon, and they were talking about it in reference to the trailer for this movie coming out called The Eternals. And they were saying, like, if you take a primitive people, you go back thousands of years, you find a primitive people, and you show up there with a spaceship, for example, that the imagery of seeing a spaceship appear will be so overwhelming that they won't even see the spaceship. And there's a term for it that I can't remember, but that's wild to me. You go back in time and you step out looking, you know, like people today, back a million years ago or something like that, you'll blow people's minds to the point where they won't be able to comprehend what they're seeing. And I think black folks are kind of like that still. I think we're stuck in this idea of we can't comprehend that there's people this friggin' wicked in the world. And I hate using, you know, somewhat religious terms, but that's what it is, right? Marcus McGee says, I'm glad I came across this podcast. I'm glad you came across it as well. Brian Jackson said, history and future planning is key. We must plan technological, economic, political, social, moral, education, scientific, and cultural systems necessary to build a new world waiting to be born. Absolutely. I clap to that. Absolutely. That's what we got to do. We got to look at what we were able to do before. When you look, let me tell you something. One of the best readings you could come across, and in fact, look back in the Pro-Black Perspective episodes, maybe 3 weeks ago, where he talked about the Ma'a Federation. If you read the Clyde Winters book, you'll read about it. Like, we got to go back and check this shit out, man, and see how fly we were in history. But not just to dwell on it and beat your chest about what we did in the past, but then to sit down today and put ourselves in the mindset of our ancestors long ago, the ones who came before Egypt and all that, the proto-Saharans, right? The Ma'aites. We got to put ourselves in that Ma'ai mindset and see what we can do today and take the environment around us and shape it and make it submit to our will and create something great, right? Brian Jackson had a good that's actually a good clarification. We aren't exactly at war. We are being warred upon. And I actually like that. Because the truth of the matter is, most of our people ain't doing nothing in retaliation. That's just the reality of it. Most of our people aren't really doing anything to counter what these folks are doing. And these folks are up all day and night doing it. Right? Marcus McGee says, only thing that saved me was realizing religion was kind of jacked up. Religion, Abrahamic religions, jacked up. Right? Daily Office by Pauline says, educated. I'm not sure what that comment was about. But, you know, let me go to the next comment. Again, though, Revolutionary Matron, about this prompt, about the 501c8, sorry. Let's talk about this in the general channel on the Discord, so everyone could be notified about it. Let's see what can be done. Brian Jackson, if you're not on the Discord, man, click the link at the top of the chat that says join our Discord. Click the link and hop on and bring what you've learned that other people have done that it works for them. Now, I will put the disclaimer out there. Just because other folks get away with it or can do it in the States, let's not think that we are going to be able to do it and build power and all that too. I just want to keep everyone's expectations in check. But by all means, let's have this discussion on the Discord. Let me go on to the next topic. This one is a little bit lengthy, so I can't really post it, I think. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, so let me post it like this. And there's a reference to this one as well. This is another one from the pro-black perspective. As well. This is another one from the pro-black perspective. Let me get it out there for you guys. Let me see. Oh, this one won't let me be great at all, huh? Okay, let's see. All right, here we are. Okay, so this is the first part of it. this is the next part of it. Sorry, so this is the first part of the pro-black perspectives prompt. I'm wondering if this phenomena of not feeling like a boy, quote unquote, not feeling like a boy, is a physical, mental manifestation of the rejection of traditional Western male patriarchal ideals and all its naturally harmful components. What's the next part? The next part, the next part is this here. So you guys can start to formulate your responses to this right now. All right, and the reference to this prompt was a picture of Dwayne Wade's son with, I notice I said son, with Dwayne Wade's wife, who is Gabrielle Union. Who is Gabrielle Union, right? And I guess that's the prompt, and the pro-black perspective finishes it with this question. Right, so let me read the whole prompt. By the way, Brian Jackson said the think tanks strategically, operationally, and tactically plan and execute daily, every minute of every hour. The need for our think tanks are extremely vital. And I personally hold that same opinion as Brian Jackson. I don't think our enemies are not thinking about us and just being them and all this kind of stuff. No, they sit and plan. I mentioned this on the show years ago when I used to do more topical type stuff as opposed to reading the papers. I mentioned this years ago, how we have evidence of folks in Florida changing up the voting districts, right, to include prisons where they knew prisoners couldn't vote. And so therefore, what was a black community largely, they shifted the borders and stuff to include these prisons where, of course, the black folks there couldn't vote. So they were able to win these, like, and they have meetings, like someone recorded meetings where they're sitting down and strategically finding ways to shit us and stuff like that. So these guys do plan and work around the clock all the time to frig us up, right? Brian Jackson also said, join the Discord now. Appreciate you for doing that. This prompt says, I'm wondering if this phenomenon of not feeling like a boy is a physical, mental manifestation of the rejection of traditional Western male patriarchal ideals and all its naturally harmful components. It continues, I know this is not only occurring in the West, but the entire world has been attempting to emulate the West for decades. And as the pro-black perspective pointed out, this was asked on his Discord. His Discord is the Pan-African discussion. Right, yeah, Pan-African discussion. So this was a question on his server that he thought would be a cool shoot the breeze topic. Right, so the question that the pro-black perspective had at the end was, what could possibly be going through this boy's head, and will we see more or less of this in the future? Why or why not? Marcus McGee says Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talked about the gender identity in her book. What did she say? For those who are not familiar, what did she say about the gender identity? My take on it is this. First, to begin with, me personally, and I have a whole episode on this. I don't believe in the idea of toxic masculinity. I really don't believe in the idea of toxic masculinity. I think where we see males, and I'm using males intentionally, where we see males doing some stupid stuff, I think a lot of times that's because they lack masculinity. And no offense to our women, or you know, but I think a lot of those males are doing the stuff that they see women do. I've pointed this out in the past. When I look out in the streets here, right, and I see men looking to kill a man for stepping on his shoes, I ask one fundamental question. Between males and females, who are the ones who are more particular about their shoes? That's a female trait. That's just a fact of the matter. And at one time, it was a case, and probably still is the case, I'm just not in those spaces anymore. But one time you go to a club and you step on a dude's shoe, that could be a killing scrape here in Brooklyn. That can be an absolute killing scrape here in Brooklyn. And I'm sure in parts where you guys reside as well. You know? So, to answer the question, what's going through that boy's head in that case is, in my belief, and you know, his case is different from others, I'm sure, but a lot of times, I'm sorry, in that case, I think the influence is coming from his stepmother, right? I think the influence comes from his stepmother. As KW Don 7 says here, Gabrielle Union admits to performing an act on Dwayne Wade, which is so disgusting it explains why his son is destroyed. I had to laugh at the destroyed part. I think in this kid's case, I think Gabrielle Union is the issue. The backstory to Gabrielle Union, if you don't know, when Gabrielle Union was like 18 or 19, she was raped. And I think deep down, Gabrielle has a kind of a man-hate in her. This is my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. I'm just answering about this boy in particular. I think she has that kind of man-hate thing, and I think she wants to kind of soften up men as much as she can, right? For example, if you watch sports, you'll see commercials, or you'll see this Dwayne Wade commercial with Gabrielle Union. I beg you to find me another example anywhere in history of commercials where you got a 6'7" athletic guy. I think I've talked about this on the show before, right? Being outcompeted by his woman in any sports commercial you've ever seen. I want you to, if you have it, I'll change my mind towards it today. If you have an example, I will change my mind. I have never seen something where an athlete, Dwayne Wade is, in his basketball career, is one of the best basketball players, right? Some people say he's the number 2 shooting guard all time or something like that, right? Find me a commercial where you see him competing with his woman, where you see an athlete competing with their woman, and their woman is beating them in every competition in the commercial. It's cute, but you gotta watch the message. You gotta watch the message. Revolutionary Matron says, black men need to protect our women, and as a black woman, my fate is tied to my mind. I appreciate that. Marcus McGee says she basically said it was a subconscious reaction to white supremacy. Their kids have no fathers and don't know what a man or masculinity is. Who is she? Is that Gabrielle Union? Revolutionary Matron says GU and lots of women have untreated trauma and they refuse to get help for it. The pro-black perspective says someone said call Dwayne Wade by his actual name, Dwayne Union. Yeah, you gotta call him Dwayne Union. Right? Also, others have pointed out that this kid, Dwayne Wade's kids, used to have a hen of a nanny around them. A white boy, blonde, looked like Fabio. If you go back, you'll see it. You'll see pictures of it. They used to have this white boy around them who was a nanny. First of all, I don't want no man taking care of my children, especially my boy. In fact, none of my children. Right? right? You have a nanny, a male nanny, a gay male. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. So, oh, you're talking of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing? That's who said it? Right? So, y'all forgive the phone ringing in the background. So Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said it was a subconscious reaction to white supremacy, which is what I think the prompt is really getting at. The prompt is saying, listen, black men, from the time they are boys, are being gunned down in the street, right? And, you know, being gunned down, being overly incarcerated, etc. And so maybe they think that becoming more feminine, lessening their masculinity will save them. The truth of the matter is, in my opinion, is, do you know if Mike Brown was gay or not? Do you know if in his spare time, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, what's the other young kid name from Ohio? Do you know if they were, you know, acting super feminine in their spare time? At the end of the day, you can't hide from your blackness, man. So all these kind of soft strategies of, I'm gonna act like a hen, because I've heard comedians crack this joke too. You know, they don't kill gay men and all that kind of stuff. Well, they haven't had the opportunity yet. I get, and as far as I know, maybe they have. Maybe they have. We don't know what these dudes are about. You know, at the end of the day, man, you have to be a man about it, and you have to like who was it? Like Brian Jackson said earlier, you gotta start strategizing and countering the attacks, right? Through strategy and effort. You know, putting on a dress really ain't gonna help you. It ain't gonna solve none of our problems, right? I mean, really, how is this kid? I wish I could post a picture. How is this kid and what he's doing going to solve the problem? Perhaps it's the case that some black men did think, just like they thought suicide was an option. People don't talk about it. Black men commit suicide heavily, and the belief is that because it's a response to so-called white supremacy. Perhaps these guys are becoming, you know, feminized to counter it. In my opinion, it still won't save you. Right? Does anyone else have an opinion on that? Let's get some more people talking about it. Not just me. But like Revolutionary Matron said, is the trauma some of these folks go through in the past that's unresolved, and they kind of lash out at it. So unfortunately, Gabrielle was traumatized when she was a teenager, and I just think that she's pushing back because she thinks it's masculinity that caused that interaction. That trauma that happened to her as a teenager, not necessarily masculinity, man. You know, Daily Affirmation says so. I don't know what that means. If anyone else has a comment to this prompt, let's hear it. Pro-Black Perspective can answer too. What was your thought on it? Brian Jackson says the entertainers keep the masses in a comatose state and further deteriorate and erode original African cultural value systems and replace them with degenerate, gender-confused culture. You know, if I was to take snapshots from these shoot the breezes, some of the stuff y'all say will be gold. Brian Jackson has said something that's absolutely gold, man. We talked about entertainers on this show in the past and what their function is, right? They are also the people that usher in the bullshit. So when you talk about that commercial I referenced with Dwayne Wade getting beaten, everything, athletic by his woman there. There's it's an advertisement for a product, yes, but there's something more in that advertisement. You got to be careful. You got to be careful how you internalize that. Daily Affirmation by Pauline said this phenomenon is also becoming prevalent in women, especially those who have children. So a lot of women are becoming manly. And is it because they have children and they want to protect their children? Is that what's going on here? You know, in lesbian society, you know, that's how the so-called butch lesbian came about. When two women would go walking and holding hands in certain parts of the States, I guess, and fellas saw the shit, sometimes these white boys used to run down and beat the shit out of these women and make them run home and all that kind of shit. And so what these white women started to do was one started to dress like a guy. And so when you're taking your evening stroll with a dudish looking woman, the fellas didn't run off the blocks and beat the shit out of you for doing it, right? So at least that's what I've heard is the claim, and I've heard this from people who teach this type of stuff, right? That was how that came to be. Marcus says they are pushing the gender stuff on us because they can't have babies quick enough. Well, one way to cut down on our population for sure is to have dudes looking to lay up with dudes and women looking to lay up with women. And if it's a competition to outpace in terms of population size, then yeah, that's a strategy, right? If you're looking at your numbers and you think that your numbers aren't big enough or aren't growing, and you want to cut down our numbers, then you might start pushing this sexual confusion shit to us, and that'll stop our numbers from growing. By the way, the Pro Black Perspective did an episode, I think, on Francis Cress Welsing's book. You should check it out, by the way. Spoiler, he cites it as pseudoscience, right? But check it out and gain your own understanding. So Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, for example, Niecy Nash was married and had children. Now she's a lesbian. Okay. So we're not necessarily talking about women starting to pretend to be men or whatever and dress like men, right? So, this is a little bit off the topic. When I have witnessed this stuff happen, there's only one thing I could chalk it up to. So in college, many years ago, I had a teacher in a class, a white woman. Well, there was two teachers. One was white, one was Indian. So, okay, two white women. And this white woman told the class that she was a lesbian. We couldn't tell that by looking at her. And she said she had been married for 27 years. She had a 26-year-old daughter. And after 27 years of marriage, she decided to come out as lesbian. And I remember being a young guy at the time. Niecy Nash, I said RIP to her when it happened. The Pro Black Perspective said, Niecy a lesbian? We lost a good one, but I said RIP. And I bowed my head because, right? But going back to this white woman, I had to think about it. I'm like, why would a person be married for 27 years, have children, and at the end of it, at the end of 27 years, become a lesbian? And honestly, the only answer I could come up with, and I've applied this answer in other scenarios when I've seen it, folks become afraid of death. Is my opinion. Folks become afraid of death. They become afraid of dying without living their best life. And I believe some people honestly convince themselves into, well, maybe my best life, I've done all these bullshit relationships, I've been married and divorced and this and that and the other. Maybe my best life is with someone like myself. So I think a lot of that comes from it's a coping mechanism with death, and they're afraid that they would have wasted their life on this, that, and the other. That's my belief. Brian Jackson says Dr. Francis Cress Welsing told us their agenda is to retard the growth and ability of our community to raise masculine soldiers to fight on our side of the chessboard. That's absolutely true too. You get a couple of these Dwayne Wade sons running about the place in the future, because he's like 12, 13 now. By the way, he's too young to even know what the fuck he's talking about. He's too young to even really understand what he's talking about. Like Gucci Mane said, like, don't cut his dick off, dog. You know, like, he's too young to even know what he's dealing with. Revolutionary Matron says children are used as a tool of war. They have them to pass on their resources, right? And so there is that fact too. You get enough of these guys thinking that this shit is cool, right? Who are the people who are the folks that are going to stand up and protect the community going forward, right? So that was that. Does anyone else have any last comment they want to post concerning that? Tatum's adds Urugu's eunuchs, absolutely. Right? Remember, them white boys didn't like, they didn't like having strong black dudes around. Remember, you know, there's a rumor that George Washington Carver, right, was around this white family. And the reason why he talked so high pitched, the rumor was that they castrated that brother because this family had daughters, and they didn't want him, smart as he was too, they didn't want him around their daughters like that. So they took matters into their own hands, right? Tatum says celebrity culture is misfit, right? So let's go on to the next prompt. This next prompt is going to be an interesting one. I had to respond to it with a thinking emoji because it is interesting. So you're going to have to change your mindset around a little bit for this one. This one says, is machine learning going to approach intelligence, or will it just be pattern recognition refined? Right? You guys take that one in, and I'll as a comment on that prompt on the other side of the station break.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, sir. Check out those shows as well as the Queen's Council podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the KWAZ Radio YouTube channel as well. KW Don 7 says celebrity Niecy Nash is a disaster. I feel sorry for grown children. If that happened to me, I would have to disavow my own mother. I feel you. KW Don 7 says Jay-Z's mother is LGBTQRP also. Tatum says I don't quite understand the question. So the question is, the current prompt is machine learning going to approach, I guess, human intelligence, or will it just be pattern recognition refined? Like I said, this is a prompt that's going to have to change. You know, you're gonna have to change your thinking from where we were previously to look at this prompt, right? From what I understand of machine learning, machine learning is where you teach a computer system how to make accurate predictions when fed certain data, right? So like a machine is you teaching like a computer how to recognize an apple versus a banana, right? And to be able to do it with accuracy, right? So that's a difference from like traditional computer software, where a developer, like a human, will write code that instructs the system on how to tell a difference in this case, right? Versus what usually is the case where a software will just carry out a function, right? So it's about recognition. And the truth of the matter is that machine learning, like a part of it is recognition of patterns, right? Pattern recognition is a part of it, but it's not all of it. And when you look at human intelligence is not just based on pattern recognition, which is why some of those standardized tests for children are so bogus, because they have, they'll throw these questions on these standardized tests, and when the child can't figure out the pattern, then, historically they'll call the child slow or dumb or some shit like that, right? But intelligence requires a bit more than just pattern recognition. I do believe they will be able to teach machines how to recognize patterns pretty, almost as, just about as good, maybe not as quite as good as humans. But I'm not too sure that it'll ever exceed or equal humans, because I know, for example, they have machines that have the ability to look at, like, what's it called again? To look at x-rays, right? And the machines can give you good information based on the x-ray, but you still need the technician or the doctor, whoever, to read it. So it's not good enough to replace, but it's good enough to get you, to point you in a direction, right? The other problem with the machines is that, again, it's not only patterns that constitute intellect. Can the machines also master the other aspects of intellect, which I think is the question. So there's some comments here. Coach Peters here saying good evening and condolences to Dorico. Yeah, I can't forget. I'm still doing this show and talking about the problems, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about that brother Dorico Cooper, man. That's a tough thing to go through. Revolutionary Matron says, I think it will be pattern recognition refined and redefined. The availability of information and the rate of access to information will be highly increased. It may not be the best information. I agree with that. Marcus McGee says, I mean, they have computers that beat us in chess. Yeah, they have computers that beat us in chess and reversi and Go and all this type of stuff. And that's cool because, again, those are patterns within the rules of the game and stuff like that. So I expect them to be good and at times better than us. But like, we had a situation where, didn't we have a situation a couple years ago where in one of these self-driving cars, the self-driving car didn't recognize someone in the road or something and knocked them down and killed them? Wasn't that the case recently? It didn't recognize the pattern of a human being walking across the street or something, on the side of a road or something, and it killed him, right? We know that there's certain pattern recognition that doesn't work well. In fact, recently, I was looking at this thing. You know, there's this device when you go to the doctor for a checkup. They put it on your finger, and I think it's called an oximeter. It reads the percent oxygen in your blood, right? They recently came out and said those things might be off by 20% if you're black, right? KW Dawn says, I say the latter, right? KW Dawn's meaning that KW Dawn thinks it'll just be refined, right? Am I correct? Yes. Pattern recognition will be refined. I agree. I think it'll be refined. I don't think a machine will be able to make necessarily the correct call on something because there's other factors, right? But it could damn well get close. NYC Beauty says the human mind is too complex. There are sections of our minds that is not discovered yet. Machine learning is more dogmatic than pragmatic. You cannot defeat the Most High. Boom. All right. Brian Jackson says artificial intelligence is applied machine learning and is used to solve actual problems or create problems for enemies. Tatum says over time the algorithms will get more and more advanced. Will the machines make immoral and unethical decisions? Hey, you know, that's the old premise of certain movies, right? We might have a Thanos computer in the future that says, you know, we got to get rid of half of these mofos from the planet, right? Based on pattern recognition. That's why I say intelligence is more than just the patterns that you recognize, right? There's emotional intelligence, which I doubt they'll ever be able to conquer, right? The human, Kevin Carr says the human mind is infinite. Machines are very limited. Brian Jackson says, I have a theory that the cave people are a biological form of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Look at how they study our patterns to try and learn to be civilized and humane. That's an interesting take. You know, that's an interesting take. Let's hear what the pro-black perspective has to say on this matter. Being a programmer and the like, what say you about the matter? Right? I'll tell you what though, I wouldn't want my life or my children's lives hanging in the balance, waiting on a machine to output a decision. How about you guys? How many of you want your lives and your loved ones' lives held in the balance, waiting for this machine to spit out an outcome? Right? In the meantime, while you guys answer that, let me pull up the next topic. And these will be our last three topics. This one is like a statement. We've talked about it in some form before. But we have some different folks in the room tonight. And we have some different folks in the room tonight, and so we might get some different responses. I like something I saw. I just saw the pro-black perspective answer. The pro-black perspective says, I don't see it approaching intelligence, but there are people trying. And see, that's my thing. I think, like, the fact that people are trying will mean that it'll get closer and closer. How close? I'm not sure, but like I said, there's many types of intelligence that constitute intelligence overall, right? Like human intelligence, right? And I don't think machines are going to be able to learn those different types of intelligence to constitute the whole body of intelligence. So in that way, and in that sense, I think they'll fail. But I think when it comes to certain things, again, patterns and whatnot, they'll be able to be as good, and in some cases probably be better, right? Again, though, I don't want them choosing for me. Like the pro-black perspective says here, I just lost it. Kevin Carre, sorry, says we also have to look at who is designing and programming these machines. That's a heavy point right there. That is a heavy point right there. And we are playing games right now. This is why I talk about black society. We gotta start being on top of this stuff, man. Like right now, they got these police dogs that can run you down and all kind of shit like that, right? I saw some robotics where the shit was walking up steps and flipping and doing backflips and all type of shit like that. But we're not in the game here. I'm sure we're in the game in terms of putting the shit together and helping write the code. But we're not in the game really and truly in terms of like leading innovation and all that kind of stuff. And like the pro-black perspective just said just now, someone said whoever first develops AI will rule the world, and that's true. He also said the latest one is pretty advanced, right? The latest AI is pretty advanced. But Kevin Carre, that point he made, you have to look at who's designing and programming these machines. You better look at that, and you better get on top of the game, people. Again, that's where curriculum and all that stuff comes in. You have the right curriculum that gets our people in the right mindset, and we're developing these machines for our people and our problems, etc. Fine, but you got to be mindful. These other people have a curriculum too. And we see what their curriculum is, right? Someone mentioned Rome earlier about us war, right? There's war, right? So you got to keep that stuff in mind. Brian Jackson says machines are programmed to do what humans program them to do. Machines are an extension of the agenda of the developers. That is currently. You're right about that currently, but work is being done to create machines that could write their own code. Do you know that? Work is being done for machines to be able to write and update their own coding. Right? I see a new name here, Deandra Vernon. Deandra, you know, I used to date a Deandra. She wasn't a Vernon though. I hope that ain't her. But Deandra Vernon is here saying machine will have intelligence. Yeah, machines will have intelligence. Will it have human level intelligence and all that human intelligence encompasses, right? But thanks for being here, Deandra Vernon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, right? Marcus McGee says it's going to tell them the sun is getting hot, so they better go, right? Tatum says Industry 5.0 is coming next. He also says we need to technologize. Absolutely. Kevin Carre 42 says the other thing we have to worry about is automation. Automation will make humans obsolete. Because automation is really pattern recognition, right? Again, these machines are good at pattern recognition, with some exceptions, right? But you know, that brings up a question, right? Tatum says Baba Kilimanjaro has a book for creating morally sound African scientists. That sounds interesting. Can you look up the title of that book, Titums, and post it for us? So for those people who wanna find the book and check it out themselves, can actually pick it up. You know, when the fast food companies started to unroll the kiosk and stuff for ordering food, a lot of people thought that folks was going to lose their jobs, because it happened around the time when the minimum wage was being raised to $15. And a lot of people thought, okay, they're bringing those kiosks in to take back jobs. So instead of you going to a human person saying, hey, I'd like to have this, that, and the other, you go to a kiosk and type it in. I once asked a fast food employee, when the kiosk came in, I asked the fast food employee, like, do you see it affecting your jobs and this, that, and the person told me, no, actually, they hire more workers now. So I always wonder about automation, if we have it right, that automations will make, that automation will make humans obsolete, or if in fact you would need more humans, you need humans to kind of like to be the watchdogs of automation. So you'll still need humans to work. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I don't believe humans will ever become obsolete. Even in war, they have more machines doing war now, but they still need humans. They still are out here every day recruiting folks to go. During the pandemic, I saw them still recruiting people. I had kids running around, testing their fitness and all that stuff. So, that's something to think about as well. Let me post the next prompt. Again, I want to thank all you guys who have been here, man. For the most part, you guys have been here steadily through the whole episode, and we are like 2 hours in. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys being here with me, shooting the breeze. As I said at the beginning of the show, for those who might not have heard, I might have to put a hiatus on Shoot the Breeze and stuff like that. And the 3 episodes a week and all that, because I have some obligations coming up. It'll just be for like maybe 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. And then I'll resume the show as I've been doing. But now you got to keep in mind, I've been doing 3 a weeks for damn near all the pandemic, right? And actually during KWAZ, I did a show every night. So I've been doing this and I've been keeping the trend going for a while. But some other family obligations might come up, and I might not be able to do lives. I might be able to put out some pre-recorded stuff and premiere them at nighttime, but I might have to Shoot the Breeze in particular on a small hiatus for a few weeks, right? But I thank all of you who are here tonight. I thank you for the likes. I thank you for all the dialogue in the chat room. You've made this Shoot the Breeze. This is the 7th one we've done already. You've made this a success, and I will continue to do it. Let's get to the next prompt. The next prompt is about consolidating our culture and freezing out outsiders. I'm going to turn that over to you guys this time, and I'll wait for your mentions. Consolidating our culture and freezing out outsiders. What are your thoughts on this idea? I know we've talked about it before, but today we have a lot of different people in the room. I'm still waiting to hear back from Deandra Vernon. I want to know if that's the same Deandra I know. In the meantime, though, let's focus on consolidating our culture and freezing out outsiders. What are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on Black folks consolidating our culture? What does it mean to consolidate our culture? Obviously, we know what freezing out outsiders mean, but what do we think it means by consolidating our culture, right? In the chat, I see that Daily Affirmations by Pauline said, "You have been doing a fabulous job with the Bitter Medicine podcast. I applaud you. I appreciate it." Oh yes. Update on this t-shirt business. So when I ordered the t-shirts, I ordered it like I've done with other things in the past. I ordered it as the Bitter Medicine podcast. When they went to deliver it to the post office says, "We don't know no Bitter Medicine." Even though I've had stuff delivered there as Bitter Medicine, they said no. So clearly they want to know who I am, and they returned it to sender. I didn't know this until the other day. I redid the order. I used my name this time, and I have it coming through to the post office. As soon as I get it, you guys will get it. Whether I'm on hiatus or not, the t-shirts will be sent out. I actually got a bigger order, a bigger inventory, so I should be able to get more t-shirts out to people in the future. Kevin Carre says, "Our culture is being hoarded out by outsiders thinking they are black. We are letting this happen." Marcus McGee says, "That's hard to do because our culture evolves so fast because we are creative and the rest of the world latches onto it." Kevin Carre goes on to say, "When I saw the video of the Asian Crips, it blew my mind. They were so comfortable saying nigger and are unapologetic about it." I saw that video too. Again, make sure to join the Discord. Kevin Carre, Derico Cooper, photography, and others, Revolutionary Matron, others, they post a lot of info on there. You know, you guys make sure to join up and check out, right? To be honest with you though, if Asians want to be Crips, man, let them be Crips. I think that's some shit. The gang stuff we got to get out of our society. It you know, people claim it originated to do this, that, and the other. Well, it doesn't do it now, and so we got to get out of that stuff now. We just gotta let that stuff go. And if they want to pick up that shit and kill each, provided that they're using that shit amongst their own people, let them do that. That's fine. Marcus McGee makes a point though. He said that it's hard to do because our culture evolves so fast, because we are creative and the rest of the world latches on to it. That's true. I once heard an elder say something interesting though. I once heard an elder say something, and Marcus's point reminds me of that. He said that the problem with black folks is black folks get bored too fast. We get bored and we move on too fast. He also said that we are the biggest ageists there are out there. Meaning, when our people create something, after a certain amount of time, we call that old school and old heads and all that old shit, and we just neglect it and turn it down. I mean, when you look at Dr. Ben dying in a old folks home, if I'm not mistaken, and others who died in that way, and family had to take up donations and GoFundMes to bury those kind of folks. That's a problem too, right? Like when a guy like BB King died, only people of a certain age and mindset really cared, right? BB King is one of the greatest guitarists to ever live. Right? But because of the genre, blues, that folks don't really mess with too heavy, you know, these days for the most part. Let's be honest. Let's be really honest. Who really listens to blues now? I know I do. I know it's the kind of music I like to make, right? But when you look at, like, if you go to a blues concert, who do you see there the most? You know, and that, you know, all that is a problem. I think we get bored with and we abandon aspects of our culture too much, and the vultures come and pick it up. The other thing too is we've allowed folks to have too much ground on us, and if you want to monetize parts of your culture, you got to go through these gatekeepers to monetize. You know, you got to go through, what's that Jewish dude named Leo Cohen? Like, you got to go through clowns like that. And when he was pressed about it on the Breakfast Club, yo, why do you keep putting out gangster rap? The man says, well, I got children to feed. I got children to send to college. You know? Kevin Carey says clowns like China Max saying the N-word is watered down. But to call his people a chink, he gets very upset and says it's disrespectful. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I cringe when I see brothers all over the world living in poverty and killing each other, yet they are gang members. Right. Brian Jackson says we must have private culture and public-facing culture. That's an interesting concept. Inward facing culture and outward facing culture. Okay. The private culture must be secret builders of think tanks, critical infrastructure, vital institutions. Absolutely. Absolutely. The pro-black perspective says true on blues. A sis invited me to jazz. Like, what the F? But then I remember I wanted to dance Charleston, and only white folk would do. I wanted to dance Charleston, only white folk. That's what I'm saying. And jazz is our shit. Jazz is our shit. Jazz is our classical music. Now they gave it a messed up name to kind of put it down, but jazz is our shit. Jazz is up there with any Beethoven or whatever. Dostoevsky, Weber. You know what I mean? Jazz is our shit. But we move on so quickly. This is why Miles Davis, they always say Miles Davis created like 3 different genres of music. Have you guys heard that before? That Miles Davis, you know, is the inspiration for created himself in his lifetime. 3 different genres. That's because the dude kept moving on from one thing to the next. Kevin Carey says to Brian Jackson, this is the quote here, put this on a t-shirt. Underdog, put that on a t-shirt. We have to have, to use Brian's words, private culture and public culture. I said outside and inside facing culture. All right? Private culture must be secret builders, etc. Revolution Matron comes through with a hit piece right there. We have to stop letting them dictate the things that we value, because guess what? Like I talked about blues earlier and stuff, right? They don't throw away Mick Jagger and them dudes. They don't throw away Mick Jagger and they don't throw away the Paul McCartney and the Beatles and all that. They don't throw them away. Right? Why do we throw away? Why is it we have? I mean, imagine this. We still have dudes like Big Daddy Kane, right? Mo D. What's my man here? Who Nas and them are inspired by? Damn, what's his name again? I'm forgetting the brother's name. He's like the legend in hip hop. He's still around too. I can't believe I'm forgetting the man's name. Right? This is the same dude I'm trying to remember put on an album a couple years ago and it flopped. And this is the guy where Nas and all these guys get their flow from. Rakim, right? All these dudes get their flow from. All you gotta do is put them on a beat and on a modern day beat that the kids tend to care about, because that's really what, like for hip hop, for example, that's really what it's about. The sounds change, right? But if you put those elders on those sounds, you telling me they're not gonna? You telling me G-Dep ain't gonna do good work on today's beats, come on. You know, but we throw that shit away. Revolutionary Matron said we have to stop letting them dictate the things we value. She says we are always looking for the approval of others, and we abandon our own stuff to get the acceptance. She goes on to say the only reason Tupac is still popular is because he is dead. And you know what that is too? These folks, these other folks that we deal with, they have a fetish with death. You're more valuable to them when you're dead than when you're alive. And I believe it's because you can't put up no fight, right? You can't put up no fight. Imagine Prince and Michael Jackson and die, and Michael Jackson's ma has his will, and these folks come and tell you, nah, that's not the will, we have the will. Imagine Prince was a guy who wouldn't let his music be played in commercials and during sports games and all that stuff, and these folks come and say, oh, he's dead? Okay, we're gonna start playing his shit inside the arenas now, on commercials and whatnot, right? Marcus McGee said they are body snatchers and leeches. Absolutely, right? Revolutionary Matron says they make 100% profit from the project. And what people don't understand too, and I want black folks to understand this, a failed project is only a failed project if you compare it to a project that obviously was a winning one. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that you put out a Michael Jackson, like right after Michael Jackson died, they put out an album, and one of the songs that actually had some play to it, which was a good, you know, a pretty catchy song, was a song with Akon. I think it was called Hold My Hand. Did that album sell like Thriller? Hell no. But trust me, they made some money off that album. It's only a failure if you compare it to some of the shit Michael did before. But for what it was and the nostalgia effect, and again, white folks like death, so they'll go and buy a dead black dude shit like crazy, right? Those guys made money off that album, believe me. You know, Brian Jackson says music is a very spiritual thing. There's a reason they killed Sam Cooke, Tupac, Whitney, Prince, Luther, Michael as well, right? Yeah, and they know that stuff too. We gotta stop giving up our secrets. We gotta stop inviting folks to the picnic. So that's what you mean by consolidate. You're absolutely correct. Keep that shit in-house, right? Monetize it with our people as much as you can, you know, and you know, stop letting everyone eat from our hands. Marcus McGee says more likely it sold better than the album before it. I'm telling you. When an artist dies, if you notice something, these folks run out and the sales for albums increase. They have a thing about this thing. Elvis dies, they run out and buy. In fact, they sell, you know, Elvis' estate is making money every year. Brian Jackson says when a little consciousness and higher vibrations are inserted into music, it wakes us from comatose state, which violates the planned role for entertainers in this parasitic paradigm. Absolutely. This is why conscious music doesn't go anywhere. This is why conscious music doesn't go anywhere. But again, and by the way, I want to share something with y'all too. One of the problems, since we're talking a lot about music and the music industry, one of the problems we have with music is we tend to look at folks who are living high off the hog, it seems, at least, from music. But the reality of it is this. If you're a musician and you could put out pretty good music that has good value points in its production, let's be real about this thing. You could eat off your music. You could live off your music. You could have a 6-figure and more income off your music just doing it by yourself. You don't really need the labels, but you have to have that hustle in you though, right? So when I see guys like Athrazur out here playing on the street corner, and you guys know who Athrazur is, right? When you see him playing on the street corners and stuff like that, when he gets good production value and he can collab with other Africans around him to make music. Let me tell you something, that old model that the hip hop artists had back in the day, like the ones in the South and DC and stuff, especially selling tapes out their back trunk, you could make money off that model. But if you're only thinking that, well, if you ain't making millions upon millions and you ain't you're not able to floss in the videos and all that stuff, then you're a fool. Look, I'm telling you, and part of what I'm telling you is from experience. You could play the small venues in your city or the nearest city to you. You could sell your tapes, so to speak, your CDs, $10 a pop, right? And you can make 6 figures and up a year. Again, you have to have that hustle, but you don't need to go through this system. The same way Kevin Carre and them are photographers and out here making their money and doing their hustle, you can do the same thing. In the chat room, Revolution Matron said this is where these member-based 501 corps can help. And she said she posted a listing of all the different kinds on the Discord. I'll check that out as soon as I'm done here. You guys check it out too. Marcus McGee says, I always told my friends that our music is too powerful, so we should watch how we consume it. They said it was only entertainment. Yeah, our music is not just entertainment, right? Our music tended to be message music. Go back and listen to Sam Cooke. Someone mentioned Sam Cooke earlier, right? Go back and listen to sensible Tupac songs, right? Or Luther, right? But we can make, I mean, again, you don't need the labels. The technology is to the point where you could sell your work online. You know, you open for acts, you create your own headlining situations. You can do that stuff, right? The same way I don't need a radio station to transmit a podcast is the same way you could do your thing in music and art, whatever it is, you know? Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I heard DMX was worth $50K when his will was read. Couldn't believe it. Not sure if it's true. I think I heard that too. I think I heard that too. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Let's be real. A lot of these talented dudes, this goes back to curriculum again. This goes back to education. This goes back to community. I've talked about this on the show before. I went to high school. I grew up in a church too. I remember some of the dudes who were better basketball players than me were dudes who were playing basketball more than me because they were in school less than me, they was doing schoolwork less than me, etc. Right? A lot of these talented dudes are not down with, you know, education as heavy, right? Reading, writing, arithmetic, but they're talented. They have these skills, and you know, when they go to monetize these skills now, because they don't have the other skills, the skills that you need in business and in negotiations and whatnot, they get gypped all the time. A lot of them get gypped all the time. Even Nas, who's a sensible dude, whose father was a blues musician, was about to be gypped on his first contract until this white boy MC Search had to come in and step in and say, no, that's a bad deal. That's a bad deal. And Search is walking around here now bragging that he got Nas his first good deal, right? Brian Jackson says, off topic, I'm in the Discord. It is amazing. I especially love the library. How can I add to it? I think you should just be able to add books to it by just clicking the plus sign in the comment section. Or if you want, you could DM me. I'm Koku on there. Right? You could DM me and I'll put the books up. I tend, just as a side note, with the library on Discord, I tend to like to put a picture up before I put the actual attachment of the PDF or what have you, because then people are quicker to recognize the book that they're looking for, and they see that there's the attachment right below it. So if you want, after the show, or or at some point through DMs, we could talk about how to go about doing it, and I'll walk you through. But I'm not surprised with DMX. Plus, DMX was on dope. I don't mean to disparage the brother. RIP to him. But DMX was on dope, and a dope fiend will fall for anything, right? So I mean, let's just keep it real. We've talked about that topic. We still got people in here strong. I appreciate you guys. If there's any other last comments you like to make on the topic, by all means, do it now. I'm about to post the next topic from Daily Affirmations by Pauline. All right, the next topic is from Daily Affirmations by Pauline. It asks the question: slavery or Holocaust? Which was worse? Which had the most negative impact? From what I've heard of the Holocaust, it was bad. I mean, no one wants to be walked into an oven, right? But we don't want to fall prey to recency bias. We don't want to say, well, because it happened more recently, it was worse. The reality of it is, generations of Jews weren't born into the Holocaust. Let's say the Holocaust lasted 8 years, 8 or 9 years or something like that. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But it had a relatively short period of time, right? We're talking about a Holocaust for black folks that lasted, well, actually it's still going on. So if it's still going on, we're talking about over 400 years now. Pro-black perspective says slavery way worse. I mean, these dudes had all kind of ways to get up out of it, right? If you had some dough, if you had some money and you were ooish, you could pay your way out and get smuggled out and all that kind of stuff. We actually had princes and all kind of stuff enslaved. There's stories about, and you guys remind me of the name of the popular prince that was sold into slavery and died. I think he earned his way out of slavery and tried to get back and died. I think it was like in Sierra Leone or something, like a neighboring country, right? And died before he actually was able to return to his homeland, right? Revolutionary Matron says our Holocaust and our slavery were just as bad and is ongoing. Yeah, slavery, I go back to what the pro-black perspective is. Slavery, way worse. Slavery, way worse. I mean, we have pictures out here now with 4- and 5-year-old children picking cotton and all kind of shit. The legacy of slavery, still plays on us today. The legacy of the Holocaust plays on those folks too, not us, those folks too. Like I read in a paper before about genetic memories, right? Look up that episode I did on genetic memories. Where they were talking about how like the stress hormone in descendants of those who went through the Holocaust is naturally higher than the rest of us. Now, of course, these people didn't study us to see just how high our stress hormones are. By the way, we suffer from hypertension and all this shit more than anybody else. I wonder why. Right? I wonder why. Revolutionary Matron says there was no doctor coming up with fake diseases to get us out. There were people lying about our identity, dragging us into slavery. Brian Jackson says the Mahafa, Ma'an Gamizi, is still happening. The Jew Holocaust was brief. Yeah, that's my point. I mean, the Jew Holocaust is a drop in the bucket. It's a drop in the bucket. And by the way, if you do your digging, there's certain evidence that will show that they initiated their own Holocaust. I won't talk about it more on this platform, but you guys look that up. There's evidence, if you look deep enough, there's evidence to show that they initiated their own Holocaust so that their suffering can be seen. Because remember, in the world at that time, you were able to capture images and audio and all that kind of stuff. We weren't able to do that, right? And the idea is that they initiated some of that so that they could get their homeland that they now have, and they're actually carrying out their own what's the word I'm trying to find? Oppression of people in that land, right? Think about that. Revolutionary Matrix said there was no one cutting up their children, placing their body parts on their doorstep because they did not produce enough. Yeah, I mean, look, slavery, chattel slavery. You can't find anything worse than that. Brian Jackson says the global genocidal agenda against melanated people of Africa and the diaspora has never ended. Their think tanks think of ways to perpetuate their agenda under different masks. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're still going through. Marcus McGee says, yep, they are slick. Right? They are slick. These, again, deception. These guys will say, hey, we sacrifice, and this is their mindset. We'll sacrifice some of our people, sure. It'll be brutal, sure. But what we're going to earn at the end of it? Let's face it, these guys had their so-called Holocaust and came out supremacists too. Right? So which one do you think was worse? I bet on the guys who came out supremacists themselves. Right? So-called supremacists themselves. Right? You guys post your final thoughts on that topic, and that will bring me to the last Shoot the Breeze topic of the night. All right, you post your thoughts, and that, as you do that, I will post the last Shoot the Breeze topic that I received. So as you can see, I don't skimp on discussing the topics that you post. Some topics I will know absolutely nothing about, right? And I will lean on, the knowledge in the chat room or whatever, to get us through it. But as you see, I don't shy away from any of the topics. I take all of them, and I try to discuss them. And with your help, I think we all do a very good job of fleshing out some of these ideas. Kevin Carre trying to get mine in trouble, but I appreciate it. He says, who funded slavery? Ooh. Don't hit him too hard now. Marcus McGee says, yeah, they are the main ones that take advantage of us in entertainment. Ooh. Don't hit him too hard now. Don't hit him too hard now. Don't hit him too hard now. I don't know about y'all. I'll take 8 years over 400 plus years. If I could come out, if I could pass through and survive the 8 years versus passing through and surviving the 400, I'll take the 8. Thanks. right? These guys did their thing, and they've come out now as a part of the supremacist mindset that certain people have, right? And we got to be super honest about that, right? We got to be super honest about that. Let's see. Boom. So this is the last topic right here. We're gonna close on this topic right here, and I'll let you guys do more talking before me. So I'm gonna post a topic, do a station ID, and on the other side, we'll come back and discuss this last topic for the Shoot the Breeze episode tonight.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Make sure to check out those shows for real, because last week I was happy to see, I think it was last week, you know, I do what I usually do. I announce these shows. I remind people of the Pro-Black Perspective show on Sunday mornings, etc. And I was in the chat, and I noticed that Revolutionary Matron and a few others from here, I can't remember if it was Derico, Cooper Photography, or who it was, but a couple of people who were here last week for Shoot the Breeze was in the chat the next morning, and I really appreciate that, man. Make sure to check out those shows. They have good things to say as well. So in the chat, Revolutionary Matron says, if I could come out on top at the end of 8 years versus the meager existence we have after 400 plus, I do it for my future generations, and I don't even have kids. Put that on a t-shirt too. In fact, put that on a t-shirt, right? I mean, for real, right? Brian Jackson says chemical biological warfare has been a time-tested weapon of choice. Hence the vaccine agenda, Tuskegee, smallpox, and Native American blankets, etc., etc. So Brian Jackson is responding to the current prompt. The current prompt is COVID vaccine on youth. Thoughts on why young children are being encouraged to take the vaccine. I didn't correct the spelling there, but yeah, young children are being encouraged to take the vaccine. Right? COVID vaccine on youth. Thoughts on why young children are being encouraged to take the vaccine. The Pro-Black Perspective said they still encouraging people. I thought they had enough. No, they're still encouraging people, man. They're doing all sorts of shit out here, man. I mean, if you want a free Uber ride to the Hall House, and from the Hall House to the vaccination, you could get that. They may even tip. The person you see while at the Hall House. I mean, the shit is crazy now, man. They're doing a whole bunch of shit. You know? The Pro-Black Perspective says, give thanks, Asante, to Revolutionary Matron and L. Revolutionary Matron and L. Okay. NYC Beauty says ScrewTube is censoring again. We'll talk on the Discord. NB for the Fall is a new name I've never seen before. NB for the Fall says, ha? Man, sometimes, let's get this straight. Y'all gotta drop some content. Some context. Sorry. And content in your comments sometimes. NB for the Fall, I don't think I've ever seen you here before. So you must be new here. What are you high about? Let's understand what this high is about. And if we can't get a reason for the high, maybe the moderators got to get you up out of here, right? Revolutionary Matron says young children have been effective in getting adults to do several things. They market to the young to impact the actions of the adults. Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. In fact, I have a personal disposition of I don't have my kids do anything unless I've already done it before, or unless I'm willing to do it before they do it. I have a personal disposition in that, right? Because I've seen it too often with black folks. We send our kids, all right, now you're old enough to go get your driver's license, go get your license. Meanwhile, you ask them, so when you got your license? I never got it, don't mind me. Go and get, I mean, it's just stupid. You have to be willing to do it before kids do it. And if that's understood, then a lot of folks will capitalize off that kind of thinking, right? And by the way, how many of you are like that? Right? Before you send your children or the children around you to go do something, you do it yourself. You do it first. How many of you have that type of mindset? Right? So I see they got MB for the fall out of there. Probably some troll. And if he's not a troll, if he or she is not a troll, they should have made themselves, they should have made it known they want to troll and explain themselves. By the way, where's Deandra? Well, I asked that question of Deandra, and Deandra just bounced on me without saying. Makes me think it might be the same Deandra. So yeah, I mean, my take on it is similar to Brian Jackson and others. Most people, I believe, wouldn't have their children do something before they did it. So if you start pushing it for the kids, then the adults will do it first. But I'm mindful of the so-called C-19 vaccine. I've talked about that in the past. My take on it is if you don't trust it, then don't take the vaccine. But live with whatever consequences may come. Right? Live with whatever consequences might come. I'm very wary of these folks. There's a meme that went around recently that said something along the lines of, let me see if I could find it in my own shit. What is it again? There's a meme that went something like, if the vaccine is for the good of the community, right, if they're offering free vaccines essentially for the good of the community, right? In fact, I'll tell you right now, it says, if giving free shots is for the health of the nation, and by the way, there's a young child in the picture getting injected. And the meme says, if giving free shots is for the health of the nation, why aren't they giving away free insulin, free chemo? All of a sudden, this experimental shit, and it is experimental, is free. But there's other shit that we know will save lives, insulin, all this stuff that some people can't afford to take. Chemotherapy is poison, by the way, but it ain't free poison either. Right? Revolutionary Matron is like me. She said, I went ziplining because my niece said she wanted to go. I had to make sure it was, absolutely. Absolutely. Marcus McGee says, I'll homeschool if they make it mandatory. Marcus, you could homeschool if they don't make it mandatory either. Just keep that in mind, all right? I would say if you can homeschool your children, do it. Right? Revolutionary Matron says to Marcus McGee, I wish people would partner to do learning pods in my community. Fortunately, they believe that the school can educate the children better in school versus a prescribed program. I used to think that too, Revolutionary Matron. I used to think that too. That a lot of people think the school can do better. I still think that's somewhat true in a lot of cases. I actually think that a lot of people just don't want that responsibility. Because remember, if this kid goes out into the world and they don't know this, that, and the other, people are gonna look at who they got their schooling from. And I think a lot of people just don't want to be that on point. Homeschooling is no easy task. I know the pro-black perspective does it. It's not an easy task. A lot of people don't want to be on point, but on top of that, a lot of people don't have the ability to stay home themselves and do it. And what we would need is what Matron is talking about, pods. We need the people who can stay home to be the people who will homeschool. And that conversation might go back to the whole barter conversation we had earlier. How do those people eat and drink and feed them, feed their children if they have them, or what have you? How do they live? Right? But a lot of people just don't want to be on point. It takes a lot to be on point. Trust me. I know a lot of you in the chat room know what I'm talking about. I know Kevin Carre knows what I'm talking about, the pro-black perspective, and others. Daily Affirmations by Pauline, etc. It takes a lot to be on point every day, day in and day out. Pro-black perspective say, yeah, it's hard. That's a personal thing to put inside the chat room, my guy. God damn. That's not the kind of thing. We have ladies here, man. No, I'm just kidding. Brian Jackson says, free immune system boosting nutritional foods would be the solution if their intentions were pure. I agree with that. Why aren't you giving out free food? You're right about it. That's a damn good case. We read about all the time, all this food that restaurants are throwing away and all this old shit. Markets are throwing away all this food and stuff like that. If you already cared about people, how about giving them some real good food? If you live in the New York City area, like most of the vegetables and stuff come from around these Korean folks and stuff. Let's get rid of that shit, right? That by the time you buy some grapes from one of these fuckers and put it in your fridge, if you don't eat that by tonight, that shit is moldy by tomorrow, right? The pro-black perspective says there was a website for paying for school lessons. There was a website for paying for school lessons. There's a lot of folks who do, and I think someone you and I both know has an online educational program. But even like that, right? Even if the kids are home being taught online, who's home with them? We gotta really sit down and figure this stuff out. Who are the folks that we're gonna have home with these kids and to supervise and to make sure they're not getting up to foolishness? I mean, kids get up to mischief all the time. Who are the folks home with them and making sure they're focused? Look, this pandemic showed something. Let me tell y'all something. If you leave schooling up to these kids online, these kids ain't gonna do no school. I've seen that for a fact. I've had to get on my kids about that several times. If you just leave them and say, okay, this is your job, this is your responsibility, I shouldn't have to be in the damn online class myself and holding your hands and making sure they won't do that schoolwork unless you get on point and get behind them. You always have to have people, physical people around children to keep them on point. That's a fact. NYC Beauty says Mayor de Bozo, talking about de Blasio, is telling you to get the shot and you will get free fries and a burger. I saw that. I mean, imagine that. That's like when Obama, like Yvette Canal says, Obama. That's like Obama drinking Flint water. As if we don't know they poured that shit out of a bottle into a glass and gave you that shit. I mean, come on, man. You're drinking clean water and pretending like it's Flint water. Stop it. Pro Black Perspective says private school lessons for like 1 hour. Revolutionary Matron says there is no profit in adequate education and supportive services. There is profit in vaccine. Even if the vaccine is free, they profit. Right? Even if a vaccine is free, they profit. Pro Black Perspective says facts. I once tried a learning co-op. White folk infiltrated though. I never went. You see? You see what I'm saying? You know, we have to come up with the solutions for us. We have to do. No one else. No one else can come up with these solutions. Revolutionary Matron says learning has to be a lifestyle. My sister did not like inviting education into the home 24/7. It was too much responsibility. This is our problem. I no disrespect to your sister, by the way, Matron, but generally speaking, this is the problem. Like, you have folks who could be home all day and homeschooling their kids. I'm telling you that for a fact. Let me tell you something. There's some of our folks out here who accept government assistance and stuff, and they're home all goddamn day. I live by a park. When you see the weather's halfway decent, these folks are sitting around a park doing nothing all day, banking on a little assistance. And you could have been sitting down, following the pro-black perspective, myself or whoever, Umar John, whoever's out there putting out knowledge, right? Seeking out how to take that time and raise up your children, educate your own children. Learning has to be a lifestyle. And unfortunately, and I think Revolutionary Matron kind of gave us the final word here, these are the folks having children. The folks who don't want to be on point 24/7, 365, are the folks having children. Man, we've been here damn near 3 hours. And most of you have stayed the whole time. And I appreciate you. I hope that you guys still have something in the tank for tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tune in to the pro-black perspective. I'm assuming he could let me know if it's the case or not. I'm assuming he has a show tomorrow as per usual. You guys make sure to be in his chat room, giving him comments and taking in what he's putting down. All right. I appreciate all you guys who were here. I'm going to go through and call out everyone who was here. But first, Marcus McGee says, I want to start a business so I can help my wife with homeschooling. Beautiful. Beautiful. Kevin Carre says, look up the movie Idiocracy. I'll look that up. If I could find it and stream it on the Discord. By the way, I've been thinking about it. I know I have this bot that's been putting this out there and I haven't kept up with the bot, but would you guys be interested in hanging out again after my hiatus that's gonna probably come up? When we resume, would you guys be interested in checking out different movies on the Discord? Not a night of the podcast, not that, but like a different night, maybe a Friday night. Actually, I was going to reserve Friday nights for a Discord conversation. The Pro Black Perspective says you know it. So you guys make sure follow the Pro Black Perspective and check him out on Sunday morning tomorrow. Kevin Carey says that he has the link to Idiocracy, so maybe that's something we can put in the Discord and have an evening where we watch a film and discuss it in the voice or text channels on the Discord. So that's something we should look into. But I'd like to know if you guys are really interested in it. Type 1 if you're interested. Let me know what day is a good day. If it's not Friday night, what's a good night? Keeping in mind, I usually do a show Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. As a matter of fact, during the hiatus, I might be able to set it up to screen a film on the Discord, and it wouldn't interrupt with what I'm doing during that time. So you guys let me know, what night is a good night for a film? Should I put a film instead of the Shoot the Breeze for the next couple Saturdays? And we watch those and have a earnest discussion about it afterwards? You guys let me know. All right? I see some ones. I see some people saying yes, sounds good. So let me know what day. That's the last question I'm going to ask tonight. Let me know what day, what time, what day and time you think is good. But I want to be able to get the maximum amount of people. I don't want 3 people. I mean, 3 people is fine. Don't get me wrong. I love all of you. But I want to be able to get, like how we have 15 different people inside here right now. What night can we get that kind of, that number of people and that energy of the masses, so to speak, on the Discord to do the show? As a matter of fact, what I'll do too, I'll put up I think I could use a bot to do this. I'll put up something on the Discord to ask the question of night, day, and time, right? The Pro Black Perspective says, yeah, in the place of Shoot the Breeze. Yeah, I was thinking Saturday night might be a good time. So next Saturday, maybe we play Idiocracy, right? Since Kevin Carey has the link, maybe we put that up next Saturday as the Shoot the Breeze, instead of the Shoot the Breeze episode. I gotta talk to Erzuliism again to screen his film on the Discord. He did tell me it's fine for me to do it, but I gotta get the link from him. And so I'll screen that movie. That'll be the second film I'll do in place of the Saturday night Shoot the Breeze. And on the Discord, because there's voice channels and text channels, etc., even if I'm not present, you guys can have serious discussions. Hopefully a guy like the Pro Black Perspective will kind of lead some of the serious discussion, or maybe Revolutionary Matron, in fact, someone of that nature could lead the discussion, and you guys could still have a good discussion even if I'm not able to make it. All right, so if that sounds good to you, it sounds good to me, we'll do that. Let me go through and thank the people I've seen here. The Pro Black Perspective was here, Marcus McGee was here, Revolutionary Matron, Kevin Carey 42. Who else? Let's go through it. Brian Jackson was here in a big way today. I appreciate you, and thanks for joining the Discord. Marcus McGee, did I mention you being here before? Thanks for joining the Discord. You were a big addition as well. I appreciate that. I like when people come through and you make an impact immediately, right? NYC Beauties was here. Bear with me, I gotta go through the names. Daily Affirmations by Pauline was here. Who else was here? Man, there was a lot of discourse in here tonight. So there's a lot of comments to go through. Tedums was here. Did Tedums ever come back with that book from Baba Kilimanjaro? Can someone look up Baba Kilimanjaro? I'm not familiar with Baba Kilimanjaro. Look up the book talking about how to create morally sound African scientists. If someone could do me that favor and post that in the chat, I'll appreciate it. But Tedums was here earlier. Deandra Vernon, still waiting to know if that's his Deandra. I know. Who who else? NYC Beauties, KW Don 7 as usual was here. Can't forget KW Don 7. I think I saw KW Don 7 in the Pro Black Perspectives chat also. Coach Pete was here. Thanks to Coach Pete. And make sure check out some of these folks' channels as well. You know, right? Man, I think I got everybody. And if I miss you, it's not because I want to miss you. NYC Beauties, NYC Sports Archives was here. Black Excellence was here. Everyday NYC 1 was here. You know, check everyone out, check each other out. On the Discord, we should all be on there. Make sure come through and commune with the rest of us. If you're not sure about how to navigate through, just go to like the general channel, at me or at everyone, and say, hey, how do I find books? How do I do this? How do I do that? And someone there will help you out. All right. I appreciate everyone who was here. I will be back on Tuesday and Thursday of this week for sure. Saturday is when it starts to become a little bit questionable, but I'll keep you informed. Thank all of you for passing through. The book is TDKA Kilimanjaro and team has written many books. They are the University of Kemet Press. The University of Kemet Press, I gotta say something about them, not to disparage them, but you gotta be careful. I ordered a curriculum book from there one time. I think the Pro Black Perspective put me onto it, and that book was out of print or whatever. It took me a little while to get refunded for it. So, you know, make sure everything is in print or whatever when you order from there, but it's a book to look into. All right, so make sure you guys, I'll see you guys in the Discord right after. I'll be there for a few minutes. I've been on for 3 hours, as you know. I'll be there for a few minutes. I'll be in the chat tomorrow morning for the Pro Black Perspective. You'll see me there as well. Until next time, y'all take care. Peace. I'll be in the lounge on the Discord, so navigate to the lounge, hop on. I'll be there with you. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.